So that's one of the main things I'm doing right now for the Golden Rose Foundation, and
Right.
to help with more the understanding. So it's going to be an Asian Heritage Center.
Right.
It'll have a Chinese tea house and
Nice.
all the different botanical gardens for the 6 major Asian communities in Colorado.
So how are they going to accomplish an Asian botanical garden with our climate? That's my question.
Well, I mean, think about it. If you look at it latitude-wise, we're
Okay.
roughly the same latitude as Japan.
Okay.
We actually have 2 sister cities, one in Japan and one in Taiwan,
Okay.
in China. We're roughly in the same
Latitudinal, right.
latitude and climate and everything else. So a lot of that stuff.
Is it the same climate? I mean, I've been to Japan. I love Japan.
Yeah,
Japan's one of, I would say, probably, I love going a lot of places, but Japan was one of those places. I've not been a lot of places in Asia, India, and I've been in Japan and part of Turkey. So, gotten a little bit of flavor, but not really what we consider like the Far East,
Right,
or,
right.
or East
Pacific,
Asia.
the
Yeah,
Pacific
I've been
Islands.
Pacific because I've been in Hawaii,
Hawaii,
and
yeah.
Guam,
Yeah.
and Philippines, stuff like that. But not in what you would consider like, beyond Japan,
Right.
into Eastern Asia. But when I went there, everywhere else I'd traveled up to that point, it was sort of like variations on the European theme, is what it seemed like to me. It was like, oh, I recognize this is Greek or this is Roman.
Yeah.
There was that sort of influence. But when you go to Japan, it's unique. It's just different, and the culture in and of itself it's very, I would say, homogenous, but it's more unified than you might find going into, say, an American city, or even, like when I lived in Hawaii, there were a lot of different Asian cultures there, as well as other cultures there as well, mostly because of the military. We were on Oahu. But there was a lot of blending between the cultures, and didn't seem as distinct, even though,
Well, and that's actually what most people don't understand is that within Asian cultures, it is very homogeneous. There's not a lot of diversity, which is something we take for granted here, because there is a lot of diversity in the U.S. Different religions, different cultures, different backgrounds, even different languages. Even though English is the primary language, there's differences. You don't see that a lot in the rest of the world, and most people don't see that. I'm glad you picked that up, because it is very distinct. You go to Japan, you don't get a lot of Korean or Chinese influence there. It's largely Japanese.
it's very
Yeah.
Japanese.
So now trying to meld that into an Asian Heritage Center that has, basically Chinese, Japanese, Indian, Filipino, Vietnamese, and Korean influences. Those are the 6 major Asian organizations here in Colorado. How do you do that without offending?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these cultures have been around for thousands of years and have come in contact, both good and bad, with each other. So there is still that level of, he's not Korean, they're not Chinese, even within the Asian community. So the idea with this is, or the guiding principle is like, we could be better knowing more about each other, about our neighbors. And part of the piece that we're going to have in the Asian Heritage Center is the food, because I don't think you've met an Asian yet where, hey, let's go eat, let's go have fun, let's go have karaoke.
Right.
You never really appreciate it until you're actually within that actual culture. But a lot of the foods in the Asian culture here is just Americanized. So it's not like, there's no such thing as General Tso's chicken or orange chicken in China. It's just chicken.
And it's every part of the chicken.
It's every part.
On a stick.
Yeah, exactly. Everything and anything. But people don't appreciate or realize that until like, oh, well, that's Chinese food. It's like, you know what they call Chinese food in China?
Food. Right.
But I mean, even that understanding. So that's the idea with the Asian Heritage Center, is to go beyond that.
Right.
And be able to know more about your neighbor and who they really are, because there's a lot of stereotypes.